Breaking the Mask of Depression with your host, Diva with Depression.
Hey maskers, welcome to Breaking the Mask of Depression with me, the Diva with Depression. How are you guys doing this week? How are you really doing? The world is in chaos. That's all I can say is we're in chaos, and I don't know what to do about it, so I don't know what to tell you to do about it. Someone was telling me earlier that their anxiety is on high because they just don't know what's going on. Like, it just seems like the world is just crashing. And, to people like us that are living with mental illnesses, it takes it to a next level because we already worry about everything. We already overthink everything. And so when we are surrounded by chaos and we don't know where to retreat to or how to react to it, we're lost, and the anxiety kicks in, the depression gets higher. I'm pretty sure, and this is just my opinion, that the amount of people with mental health issues is skyrocketing right about now. And the people that were already living with it are having a really, really hard time. And that's just coming from myself and from people that I speak to that are living with various conditions. It's very, very hard to maintain right now. So I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us because we're still getting up every day. We're still putting one foot in front of the other. It doesn't matter whether you're going to work or whether you're going to the next room or just going to the bathroom or rolling over, to the other side of the bed. You're still up and you still did something. And I personally know how difficult it is. I want to thank everyone for all of the feedback for last week's episode. Loneliness is a sad affair. I always think that when I'm talking about certain things that I'm the only one in the world that's going through it. And, to hear people tell me that what I'm sharing is resonating with them, really, it makes me feel so good because number one, I know that, okay, again, I'm not by myself, but number two, that I'm starting the conversation, and so if I'm telling you that, the loneliness is overwhelming and that, it's really makes my mental illness worse, maybe that will encourage someone else to start talking about it. And it did, so I'm so excited. If you didn't get a chance to listen to the episode, it's Loneliness is a Sad Affair, and it's everywhere that you listen to your podcasts and music, which is another thing that I have to share, that I have added and been accepted on Amazon Music now. So Breaking the Mask of Depression is available on Amazon Music and Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio. And when I post my work, usually in most places, I post Podlink. And Podlink will open up and it'll take you to a selection of all of the available players that my show is on. And so I didn't know that not everybody knew that. And so I was just posting Podlink and thinking that it was common, but it's some people didn't know. And so Podlink is, you click on Podlink and it opens up and it'll show you all the choices. It'll show you Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Listen Notes, Podchaser, Amazon Music, and you just click on whichever one is easiest for you to listen to. And then there are various places. I have the link in my bio and buymeacoffee.com. You can go to those sites, my website, and it'll also list the different players on there that carry my show. But thank you again, everyone, for the feedback. I was really excited to hear how well received the episode was. I'm sorry that people can relate, but it is a common thing and becoming more so as I understand. So I explained to you guys, and I'm always pretty honest with you guys about where I'm at with my mental health, and um, I'm in a pretty, crazy place, pretty scary place. I don't talk about. I try not to talk about it too much because number one, I get angry with some of the responses that I get from people. Number two, it's kind of scary to share when you are in those dark places because you don't know who's listening and you don't know what steps they will take. And sometimes we get really, really scared that, if we share with a professional where we're at, that then it'll result in an inpatient stay. And that is not always a good place for us. Inpatient can be pretty traumatic. And, we know that, those of us that have been there. And so that's one of the reasons why, when we talk about wearing this mask, that's one of the reasons why we wear these masks because we don't want people to know, what's going on, what's really going on behind closed doors because you just never know what steps someone will take once they hear. And, some people may hear, if I'm having suicidal ideation or if I'm in a dark space, some people may think that they are helping, but a lot of times they're not. And, just FYI, if anyone ever shares that with you and shares with you where they're really at, then you need to sit down with that person and you together come up with a plan on how the person would like to proceed. You don't just take matters into your own hands unless someone is a danger to themselves, of course, then, steps may have to be taken. But, sometimes people just go off and do things and it hurts the person more than it helps them. In some cases, we have seen death occur because someone thought that they were calling the right people and it turned out not to be true. So always sit down and talk to the person that is struggling and see where they're at and see where they would like to go for help, or if they need help, it may just be a matter of having a conversation, you know. But my depression never goes away. And so I decided that, and I've shared this, of course, since I started my show, and I don't think I've ever gone into detail about what severe treatment resistant depression is. And so I I was sitting there and I said, well, you know, I keep getting these comments from people, and I would think that after living like this for so many years, the people around me would know that these comments are not helpful, but I just keep getting them. And so I said, let me have this discussion. Let me start this discussion and let you guys know what it's really like to live with this level of depression. And so treatment resistant depression is major depressive disorder that is resistant to medication. And not just medication, I come to find out, but it's resistance to two or more types of treatments. And I'm going to, of course, you guys know that I always give you the exact definition with my Google facts, but severe treatment resistant depression, which is called TRD, treatment resistant depression, and severe depression is major depressive disorder. These are how they're coded, or, these are what people, the way people talk. Doctors may say MDD. I see a lot of my paperwork says MDD, and then sometimes it says um, TRD. So TRD is treatment resistant depression, and it means that the person is living with major depression symptoms that persist despite adequate trials of at least two different antidepressants, and it causes significant impairment, hopelessness, and increased suicide risk. You see where I'm at? you know? Um, and I'm saying treatments, but two different antidepressants. And I take two different antidepressants a day. Um, so I'm not, and 4 weeks later, I could not, I cannot, it's possible that 4 to 6 weeks later, I haven't responded to either one. And so what happens is that we're on a constant trial, period. We are always looking for something to help. Um, and it's, you know, causing significant impairment. I'm going to take these three words that they use: significant impairment. That is an understatement, because you think about, if you have, I'm trying to think of, if you have allergies and you have to take Benadryl, and we all know how Benadryl makes you so drowsy. Now imagine having to take Benadryl 3 times a day, and you have to go to work and you have to raise kids, so that you have to drive, or you have to, do everything. Would you function under that condition? Imagine taking NyQuil and having to function while taking NyQuil. That that's an impairment, and it really freaks me out, because they'll fill these medications, and you'll see on the bottle that it says may cause drowsiness. Then you look up the side effects, and it says don't mix with this, don't mix with that. But you have to live your life, but we can't, because you have to, you know, think about how much of a medication you would have to take just to bring you up to um, quote unquote normal level of uh, mood stabilizer. And so, and then something else to maintain that level, and then something else to maybe take it higher, or take, something else to give you the boost to think straight. Um, Live like that, and that's why when you hear people saying that, those of us with mental illnesses are lazy, that's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. That these medications cause, I mean, the side effects are tremendous. And so, no, we're not lazy. Sometimes the headaches are overbearing. Sometimes the nausea is too much, the drowsiness, the sleepiness. It's just a lot, And so, if you have someone that has, low grade depression, or I don't know what a normal level of depression is, because I try not to think in those terms. I think that depression in any form is oppressive. But, somebody that just has to take one medication, you know, that's a lot. But I take for at least 4 medications a day, and that's just for the mental illness portion. The second word was hopelessness. It is hopelessness, because you have somebody telling you every month, and this every day, that it's not going to get better. You know, yeah, you're going to have moments of joy. Yeah, you're going to have some good times, but you're not going to get better because they haven't created anything that will make you feel better. And it's sort of like getting a terminal diagnosis, you know. Um, but I don't have just, they're not saying to me, you just have, 4 to 6 years. This is my life that we're talking about. And what is there to look forward to? Taking all of this medication every day, trying to live my life while taking these medications with these crazy ass side effects, and you know with the way it limits the way you move, it limits the way you think, it stops you from even just functioning. It stops you in your tracks. um that's hopelessness. And then add, like I was talking about in the beginning, about the state of the world and just the everyday life that's going on around you. You know, you can't stop that. So now you're telling me that in addition to needing to take this medication every day, I still have to do life. I still have to take care of my family. Some of us still have to go to work and drive and do the things, or else what? Nobody's going to take care of us. They just started recognizing mental illness as a disability. Um, and, that's, you have to jump through hoops for it to get recognized still. Um, so, what do I have to look forward to? When then you go out into the world and the world is shit show. That's hopelessness. I want to tell you, you know, talking about the medications, and I'm going to describe two of the medications that I'm taking. And the side effects are drowsiness, sedation, dry mouth and dry throat, dizziness and headache, fatigue, constipation, and blurred vision. That's one. The second one is body aches, dry mouth, headache, loss of strength, loss of appetite, loss of voice, muscle aches, nausea, sleepiness or drowsiness, sore throat, trouble sleeping, weight loss, weight gain. That's just two of the medications that I'm taking. And I still have to do life, you know. Hopelessness is an understatement, you know. And so the increased suicide risk, yes, because imagine how frustrating it is to know that there is nothing out there that is going to help you feel better. Nothing, you know? Like every day they're coming up with something, but nobody seems to be coming up with the cure or something to help people that are so stuck. I mean, when I say that I live at rock bottom, I mean that I live below rock bottom, because part it's a it's a part of hell that I don't even know. There's no description. It's a darkness that there's not even a color for it, if that makes sense. Um, and it's blinding. It's a blinding darkness, um, because you're never the slivers of light don't help because they haven't created the sliver of light. So some of the symptoms of treatment resistant depression, they mirror severe depression or MDD, but they don't lift. And intense sadness, emptiness, anxiety, loss of interest in anything, significant fatigue, slow movements, restlessness. You see this, people talk slow, or that's because their brain is not like it takes so long for our brains to catch up, with our thoughts, because usually, we're having racing thoughts, and then the medication, slows down your motor skills, and so you have to talk slow because you have to get them to be in sync somehow. Um, Appetite. You could gain weight on some of these medications. You can lose weight on some of these medications. Um, some of us, food is an addiction. Food is our comfort food. So, of course, the heavier your depression, the heavier you're going to go for the comfort food. What else is going to make me feel better other than a donut or some french fries? That's just me. Your concentration sucks. Your decision making skills suck. You feel worthless. You have guilt about all of the things. I can't even think of, I say that my breakdown, the blessing that came out of my breakdown is that I was able to be home with my children, but my body was able to be with my children, but my mind was still sick. So sometimes I have to think about, well, what kind of mom did they really have? Or were there times when they needed a whole mom and they didn't have the whole mom? They still don't have the whole mom. um, and physical symptoms, I mean, I know we don't think about it, when we're thinking about mental illness, but mental illness really does affect your physical health, because chronic pain, like I just read you, some of the medications can increase pain and inflammation, headaches, debilitating headaches, migraines. Um, so this is nothing. There's nothing to sneeze at. Like this is. It's so hard to live like this. It is so hard to live like this, and I don't. I don't know what words I can use to make people understand how how hard it is to live like this, how hard it is to want to live when you are living like this. And you know, I saw a stupid article. I'm not even going to say where it came from, but it said something about the higher your BMI, the more severe your depression is. And I got upset at first because I had flashbacks to, of course, when you're overweight, everything that happens to you is because you're overweight. And, people think, oh, well, if I lose weight, I won't be depressed. Or if I lose weight, um, my anxiety will disappear. I'll have more confidence. I'll go out more. No, no, I can tell you that I've been depressed at every every weight every weight level, and it doesn't go away. You know, especially when you have a biological or genetic reason for having a mental illness. And so severe treatment resistant depression, it goes nowhere. And I have had so many different treatments. We're not even going to talk about medications. Um, but the medications, I wish I could add up all of the medications that they make for mental illness. And then I can say how many I've had. But usually, every time I change doctors, they're like, oh, have you had this? Yes. Have you had that? And there are medications that I've probably had that I can't even remember because Some of the other treatments that I'll get to in a minute have taken my memory away. And that's another thing, memory loss. You lose track of time. And there are 13.92% of the depression population is characterized as TRD. Okay? So the levels are pretty high, ages 35 to 44. Of course, we got more going on, as we get older, but um, it's it's a tough way to live, guys. It's a tough way to live. It's approximately 21 million people in the United States experience major depressive disorder each year. So, you know, 21 million, and at least 20% of those people identify as TRD, treatment resistant. And the medications, that's a treatment. And I'll tell you a secret. It says that you have to have tried at least two medications, two antidepressants or more to, and it failed to be considered TRD. But after the medications, then they'll come up with, well, you need to try different treatments. And if that treatment doesn't work, then let's go to another treatment and let's go to another treatment. And so I have had electric shock therapy, and that started at I believe, the end of 2006, 2007. But I've had at least 15 rounds of electric shock therapy. And that's the brain, when they shock your brain. And the first round was just one side. Um, and then the last 10 rounds that I had were they were bilateral. They were both sides, and they zapped my memory. That's about as much as they did. I have a I have sort of a video series of me going through TMS, which is trans multicranial stimulation. And what that is, it's like tapping. And so they fit the machine over your head, on the one side of your head, and it taps for a certain amount of time. And the same way as ECT is, they go to one side first because they're trying to, if they can get improvements on that one side, then they know that that's where, where the problem is coming from. And so I went through both sides again, and we're talking something fitted on your head, and you are laying there with something tapping like a nutcracker, a nutcracker or a judge's gavel on your head for 15 minutes. And I did that. The results were so horrible. And I believe it was 12 weeks. The results were so horrible that the doctor waived his fee. That's how bad it was, because he couldn't believe that he had never seen something like that. That I actually went through 12 weeks, and I did the treatment on both sides of my brain, and it didn't help. Okay? And I'm probably going to I'll put the videos on my YouTube page, because I did do a 2-part series on TMS. If you go back to my older episodes, and if you go to my Instagram and Facebook pages, if you type in TMS, you will see where I actually film myself being treated. And when I tell you how defeated I was, and no less that COVID came right after that. And so I went through that for 12 weeks, and then COVID came, and I'm locked away. Oh my God, the hell. Like, I did all of that and nothing worked. And then there's the medications. And so every medication out there, like I've done it. And, I'm going to give you an example. So on November 3rd, let's say, I had my appointment and got started on a new medication. Then so that was November 3rd, started new medication. On January 6th, I said, oh, it's not working. And the only reason why it went that long is because of the holidays. But usually you start a new medication and then 4 to 6 weeks later, your psychiatrist sees you. And if it's not working, they will titrate it up or down or switch you. But November 3rd, I started medication. January 6th, I said the medication is not working. Okay, stop taking it. And now let's start a new one. And so January 6th, I started a new medication. This past Monday at my appointment, I'm like, the medication is making me sick and it's making me drowsy and really like drug induced. But what did they say? Well, it hasn't been 4 to 6 weeks yet. So I have to stay like this for 6 weeks in order for them to say that they tried it and it didn't work. Imagine having to take a different medication every 6 weeks. And if you don't take a different medication every 6 weeks, how about a different um, amount? The milligrams just go up, you know. So if something goes up to 400 milligrams and I start at 150, I can max out at 400 milligrams easily once or twice a day. And it still doesn't help my depression. And that's just one medication. Because you'll have a medication for your mood disorder, and then you'll have an antidepressant, and then you'll have um, like an Adderall, for energy levels because you have no energy. You have none. Your concentration or your ADHD. And this is my life every 6 weeks. I am either being given a new medication or my levels are being raised. And so now that I'm at a point where I'm exhausted. I mean, I've been exhausted before, but it gets to the point where, what, why, why do we keep doing this? Why should I keep going? Why should I keep trying these new medications? Why should I, like, if you're telling me that it's not going to work, let me just not take anything and take my chances. I've done that once or twice. That's another show. But and you can't blame people. You watch the news or you watch shows or you read articles and people are like, well, why didn't they take their medication or why this or why that? You have no idea what kind of hell you live in. We live in our minds. Like we live in a prison. It's like a prison of our minds. And, to be told, I said, I wanted to stress this, if if you receive a cancer diagnosis and you told that you are terminal, that's it. We can give you medication to keep you comfortable and you have so and so amount of time to live. That's how we live. Those of us with TRD, that's how we live. We just don't have a timetable. And there are many days where death sentence is all I can think of. And I'm being dead serious. And there's no other way to put it. There's no other way to explain it than to tell you that I'm living in a mind that does whatever the fuck it wants to do. That's how I came up with the monster. because it does whatever it wants to do, and it's more powerful than you can give it what you got. It ain't working. And I don't have any control over it. The doctors have no control over it. The medications have no control over it. Treatments have no control over it. So this is where we are. And this is why the helplessness, the hopelessness stands out, because what are we hoping for? I gave up hope a long time ago about them finding a medication that is going to be the game changer. And guys, I'm a mental health advocate. I have a mental health platform, so I'm reading every day and trying to stay on top of things. And there's nothing that sounds promising on the horizon to me. And and whatever comes, it's going to come with the side effects, and it's going to come with you know, there may be some hidden dangers in it. My family was so upset they were never present for the ECT treatments, because um, I was always given the ECT treatments while I was inpatient, but TMS I did outpatient. And then I had the videos, and my family was so upset. I mean, my sister is still, till this day, will never get over um, watching what I went through with that TMS treatment. Um, it's torture. That's really what it is. It's torture. ECT, they always describe it, the Frankenstein treatment, but all of it is torture. Um, so you can't fault people for not wanting to do it. It's just like someone not wanting to do dialysis every day or for the rest of their lives, or take blood pressure medication for the rest of their lives. I mean, these things have side effects and downfalls, and who wants to go through that for the rest of their life? And so now we're at a point where what's next? And, you know, of course, they come up with different medications every day. There are new medications. And, you know, that's a wonderful thing. If the people can find relief, then that's a wonderful thing. But I don't know how many medications will come in my lifetime, that is going to help. And TRD is so common that I when I first heard about it, of course, when they first gave me that diagnosis, I had no idea. I hadn't heard of it. I just heard of MDD. But, as I read and as I met people, and, they shared the same illness as I was, you would be amazed at how common it is that there are many of us out there that are struggling with treatment resistant depression. So every doctor, therapist that I deal with, psychiatrist that I deal with, they try to come up with different therapies. I went through EMDR therapy, which is an emotional regulator type of therapy that I may revisit, but that's more for trauma therapy. And there are other treatments that are available now that weren't available a couple of years ago. Ketamine is one, and ketamine is like a psychedelic drug, I believe is what they call it. And it's the process of, first of all, a lot of insurance companies are not covering it yet. And so, it's something that you'll have to pay for out of pocket. Second of all, it's it, I'm not going to say inpatient, but it's an in office treatment. So it's not something that you can take at home. You have to go into a treatment center and you have to be um, injected with it and treated with it. And you have to be monitored, and someone has to be there with you the whole time, and you can't drive, and you have to, you know, check in. And so, and from what I remember, ketamine was only approved, like it was like a horse tranquilizer or something, but now it's supposed to be legally approved for humans and animals, and it's off label for managing chronic pain and treatment resistant depression. And it is known for its hallucinogenic effects. So, you know, anesthesia is involved, sedation is involved, pain management is involved. You have to be monitored closely. And so this is what my psychiatrist is pushing for now. So we are looking into that. And I went and got some books out of the library. So I will probably do an episode about it when I read up more on it and find out what it actually does and how it works. But that seems to be the big thing now. And here's the thing. I could go through the ketamine treatments and it could work for 6 months, it could work for a year, or it could not work. So you go through all of this again, and it's a crapshoot, you know. Um, Anesthesia sedation is dangerous for everybody. Imagine having to do that, you know, on a regular basis. There's another treatment that I saw called TACS, and it's transcranial alternating current stimulation. And this is just it's supposed to be like a weaker, non-invasive brain stimulation method, and it uses electrical currents that they put on your scalp with and the currents go through the electrodes and try to regulate your brain waves with specific frequencies, which it sounds similar to um, the TMS or the ECT treatment. Again, outcomes depend on the person, and by applying the different frequencies, they can they can help try to regulate the cortisol levels and the rhythms in your brain. But again, this is a treatment that you will have to do, go into the office to do, and you can't take it home. And it's this particular treatment is in research stages now, but that was the one of the new ones that I found. Another one is TDCS, transcranial direct current stimulation, and that's another low intensity brain stimulation technique, and it monitors and sort of tries to manipulate the activity through electrical currents also. Um, Again, to treat depression, chronic pain, stroke recovery. Side effects include scalp tingling, itching, um, redness, and sometimes headaches or mania. But this is a device that you actually can take home, and the sessions are 20 to 30 minutes. And the electrodes are placed on certain scalp locations to direct the current flow. So this doesn't sound as horrible as the tapping or the electric shock. Um, the side effects seem minor, and after I had done some more research, because I went and I got a book about that too. I'm going to, I'll talk to the doctor about that. But Of course, I'm going to put these in my show notes for you guys, so you can also, research them and talk to your doctor about them, because you know no one wants to feel like this all of the time. And like I said, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Only one worst enemy I would wish it on. But I would, it's a horrible, horrible way to live. And, you know, um, I have someone that makes fun of the amount of times that I would have to go. Like every time I have to go out, I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the pharmacy. It's like, how much fucking medication are you taking? I have, and if there's a picture on my Instagram of the buckets of medications that I have that they've prescribed. 6 weeks later, they try something different, or the dosage went up, or whatever the case may be. It's just constant. No one wants to live like this. And it's torture. It's torture. And so I hope that this brings light to what treatment resistant depression really feels like. I hope it brings some hope to people, because if you didn't know that it was a thing, now you know that it's a thing. There's millions of us out there with it. And, hopefully you're more successful with medications and the different treatments that are available now that may be able to help someone. Um, I don't know, the future. I don't know where I'm going to be in a year, or, 2 years, where my brain is going to be. I just know that right now it's very dark. It's very, very dark. And that's why I don't sugarcoat, you know, how I'm feeling and where I'm at in my life, because there, like I said, there are so many of us out there. And even if we're in the dark, we got to stick together. So I hope that you will, I don't know, if you're struggling, I hope that this helps you find some information. Maybe this will give you hope, because maybe your body will be able to hold on to a medication and it will improve your symptoms. Because even if you don't have a treatment, even if there is no cure, there is still the medications can still improve some aspect of the illness. That's the, I guess that's the one bright side that I can give you. But don't ignore it. Don't ignore it, because the longer you ignore it, the darker it becomes and the more dangerous it becomes. And don't be quiet about it either. I know that it's scary to tell people where you're really at and how you're really feeling, but sometimes you have to, just to have somebody keep an eye, not to smother you, but just to keep an eye out on you. And sometimes it makes them feel better to know, that you're being honest with them, and you trust them enough to allow them into that place. I'm not going to say don't give up hope. Um, I try to be positive. I try to be as positive as I can for everyone, and say that, you'll get through it. But it's hard sometimes, and it's okay. It's okay to say that it's hard. It's okay to say I don't feel like being positive. It's okay to say I don't feel like existing. I don't feel like saying good morning. I don't think it's a good morning. I was sharing this in Bible study that, people say, when they wake up, they thank God for waking them up. Some of us don't, because it's like, wake up to what? You know, this morning when I open my eyes after tossing and turning in insomnia. I had to lay there for an hour or two to try to clear my brain, to remember what day it is. That's not something that's not something to look forward to. That's not good morning. And those of you that don't live like this, try to be more understanding, try to be more patient. If you really, really love the people in your world that are living like this, research. Help them do research. Help them, find a way to find some relief. But don't judge us. We're not lazy. We're not dramatic. We're not anti higher power. We are just tired, and we just feel like there's no end to this madness and this darkness. There's no light. So I thank everyone for listening. I hope that if this resonated with you, you will share it. And you don't have to share it, just share it. Even if you don't know anyone that's that's living with a mental illness, share it, because you never know who's listening. Again, you can find me on all podcast platforms, listening platforms, my website, divawithdepression.com. If you want to support me, you can follow me on Substack, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com. Buy me a coffee. You don't know how coffee is. That's my thing. That's the only way I stay awake sometimes. But I hope that you guys find a sliver of peace and stay safe, stay well, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.